to this episode of Cardinal Film Fights. I'm your host, judge, moderator, Mark Rollins. Today, we have Colin, Tiara, and Paige, and I'm going to have them say their names again, in case you weren't listening to me. And they're going to give their year, their major, and a fun fact about themselves. So we'll start with Colin.
Hi, my name is Colin Stites. I'm an econ major. And a fun fact about me, there are nights I do not remember when I was in London.
Oh, and we're moving on to Tiara.
All right, I'm Tiara. I'm a freshman TCOM major, and a fun fact about me is that in high school I got Twitter famous for our senior superlatives or whatever.
Ooh, what was the tweet?
There were a lot.
Oh. Okay.
I'm Paige Ebner. I'm a freshman TCOM major. And I was prom queen. Thanks. Olivia just keeps telling me things to say. I say those things. That was a fact, though. It's not like I was just lying.
Oh, okay. Not just lying things. Awesome. Well, if you've watched our show before, you know what I'm about to say. But if you haven't watched our show before, we do this in a format like so. We start with a 1-minute introduction in which our contestants will say what they picked, why they picked it, followed by a 5-minute forum in which they duke it out, and then finish that up with a 30-second conclusion, just kind of wrapping it all up. Whoever wins gets first place, second gets second, third gets third, and that's the end of the round. They win that fight. So, without much further ado, we're going to delve into romanticism today because this is part of our Valentine's Day episode. Now I'm a huge romantic. My father won my mother over with a Columbus Day card. This was back in the days when Columbus Day wasn't such a divisive issue. You know? In fact, I like to think that even though Christopher Columbus may have needlessly killed, millions of people, he brought me into the world. Is that payoff enough? No, not nearly enough, but I'm going to end it there. There's just no way okay, so yeah, Columbus Day cards. Anywho, but the question for today, while Columbus Day is what is known as unique, most people don't write Columbus Day cards, but we are going to cover romantic cliches. What is the worst romantic cliche in a movie? So we'll start with Paige for this one.
So for my worst romantic cliche, it's the frenemy one. So imagine 2 characters love each other, but they just can't be together. They fight over dumb, small things that mean nothing. This happens in real life, and we all get over it. It's overused. It's abused. Everyone knows they're going to get together, so what's the point of making them fight over, you slept with my best friend? Like, we'll all get over it at one point. They're meant to be together. That's my cliche.
Gotcha. We'll move over to Tiara.
So we all have at least known someone who has dated somebody really creepy. Like, whether we were blinded by love or by how hot they were, somebody has looked at this person and gone, they are super creepy and super weird, and you need to get away from them immediately. And so my least favorite cliche, it's actually the worst, is where the girl, who is typically naive and shy and sort of quirky, falls in love with the dude who's like the bad boy, and he's just the biggest creep in the world. He's not even a bad boy, in quotes. He's just a weirdo. And I want her to run away from him as soon as possible.
Gotcha. Stranger danger. Everyone. And we'll finish up with Colin.
Well, I think we've all seen the situation where 2 people who are in love fall out of love. Oh, the heavens. And in order to win the other person back, there's a mad dash to an airport, to a home, maybe in the rain. The rain helps. It's not necessary. But in tow is some romantic gesture that is definitely out of that person's budget, shall I say.
Really bringing out the economist in here.
Whether it's with skywriting the name and a take me back, whether it's a billboard message at a Yankees game, whether it's whether it's somehow getting through TSA in 5 minutes to stop someone at the gate. That overly romantic gesture as they chase someone down that they've just broken up with is the worst cliche of them all.
Okay. Well, let's get straight into it. We'll start with our 5-minute forum.
Every Valentine's Day, a movie comes out, and it is 50 Shades of Grey. And so we're just going to start with how creepy this dude is. He is so weird. He's not romantic. Listen, I spend at least once a year complaining about 50 Shades of Grey. And to complain about something, you have to do research, so no one is allowed to judge me on this. He doesn't use the proper BDSM techniques. Safe, sane, and consensual is like the tagline, and there's none of that. She constantly expresses how she doesn't want to be involved with his whatever. And he keeps pushing her to do it, and she's like, no, I'm not into it. And people think it's romantic. And she, like, at the end of the first movie, she, like, cries, and she hates it. And she leaves him, and people are like, oh my God, I can't wait to go see the next one. I'm so excited for the next one. She hates this guy. He's creepy. And then he follows her home to her mom's house when she wants to get away from him. I don't understand how people see this as, like, a romantic thing. At all.
I would like to say this is the plot to 50 Shades of Grey, not a cliche I see in about 75% of romantic movies, unless there's some market out there where there's a lot of really bad BDSM-inspired romantic movies hitting the theaters every Valentine's Day. I don't know what theater you're going to, but I am not seeing this cliche nearly enough to think of it as something that is anything but a textbook example of why 50 Shades of Grey is definitely not a romantic movie.
It's not even just 50 Shades of Grey. It also happens in Twilight. He's super creepy too, and so is Jacob. So even now, my Team Edward-loving elementary school self can admit that Edward was a little creepy. He always looked at her at night when she slept, which was very odd. What else did he do? Oh yeah, the second one he was like, because of this, I'm gonna kill myself because I just love you so much, which is textbook abusive behavior. Not really a fan. And also there's this movie called Old Fashioned, which some people may or may not have heard of, and it's just, he's a former bad boy, so he's not even a current bad boy, but he's still a creep. He says he can't be in the same room with a woman because he doesn't trust himself around women, which is something a pedophile would say. It's very creepy, but a lot of people just
as much as I do, romantic. I agree with yours, but I just don't see it enough in movies. While like mine, the frenemy, like they just fight but they love each other, is in all romantic comedies, in all shows. Like you can even take Jim and Pam. They fight because they like can't be friends and they can't be together, but they love each other. You know this. 27 Dresses, Clueless, Blended, 10 Things I Hate About You, an amazing movie, uses this cliche. And with that cliche used, it just makes it boring because you already know what's going to happen at the end.
Well, part of what that goes into is the fact that when they got to create tension in those movies. I mean, if we just told, if you're telling a romantic comedy, the issue is you got to have interactions. There's got to be interplay, but there also has to be, that sexual tension that exists in romantic comedies between the frenemies, because the will they, won't they is part of the reason that makes those interesting, like the Jim and Pam thing. But it's not so much as a cliche that's just bad as so much as it's the plot line that they have to use when they can't rely on weird, creepy stalkers that is more of, I think, a symptom of bad writing and their finger not being on the heartbeat of America. And instead, I would say that that's a very valid storyline structure when you want to tell the story of two characters that know each other, and it not just be they fall in love and then we're going to go tragedy. But if you want to do a romantic comedy, you kind of have to do the frenemy line. Whereas any situation where you go with the giant oversized gesture of emotion and the going all out in that last final second pronouncement of love that is usually accompanied by some action that can't really be done in any real context is something that I think we see in almost any of these movies, where whether it's the weird stuff that goes on in Twilight, or it's that admission of love as they meet up as the guy chases down their flight, or we get the the situation at the end of Bruce Almighty, which is kind of like a romantic comedy near the end with Jim Carrey and Jennifer Aniston. If we get him crying in the rain and changing the elements for using godlike powers, it's a cliche that they actually use to the point to examine just how crazy it is that we see this in everything. It's something that is ripe, and it's not just of bad writing or we have to have a plot to this. It's something that's more structured. It's more unnecessary to any comedy or romantic movie.
Ooh. And we'll do 30-second conclusions. We'll start with Colin, go Tiara, and then Paige.
Yeah, there's a difference between just bad writing and necessary plot structure. There are decisive choices to do the whole chase down after a breakup thing that is ripe in the genre that we just see over and over to the point where it's expected. That's how we expect the final 10 minutes of the movie to conclude in a romantic comedy, to the point where it doesn't. It has to be about the scale, and even then it just becomes unnecessary. It's a lazy option rather than a legitimate one.
And Tiara.
All right, so there are plenty of bad romance cliches. However, falling in love with somebody who is just plain creepy, he's not even a bad boy, it might be the worst. It shows that relationships with bad people are something to be normalized or even be seen as romantic. Half the time it's just bad writing, like Colin said, but other times it could be extremely dangerous to present relationships this way. And so it's something we shouldn't accept in our romantic movies anymore.
And finish it off with Paige.
I think that the running down in the rain and the over-dramatic gestures is coming to like a downfall in nowadays, like romantic comedies. Like people are kind of understanding like that is over the top, like it is too much, and like no movie's really doing that much anymore. And the fact that like you said, like they use it as a plot line really shows like how much of a cliche that so many movies have to use the exact same plot line to like get their point across, when you can use a different way other than them like fighting and having that sexual tension between the characters as a cliche.
Well, let's see. What was I gonna say? I had a witty anecdote to pose. At least I think it did. It sounded witty in my head, but it probably wasn't that witty. No, what was I gonna? Okay, I was gonna say, so like, there's probably a movie like with all three of these things, like creepy frenemies that run. Creepy frenemies on the run. That's what
Catch Me If You Can.
Yeah, Catch Me If You Can. Yeah, that's exactly. Yes, the sexual tension between Tom Hanks and Leonardo DiCaprio. But Tom Hanks is really creepy because he knows everything. I guess it's because he's in the FBI, but he like stalks.
Can I pay to see that?
Well, okay, rebranding Catch Me If You Can as a rom-com. I'm down for it. I say we do it. Okay. Decision. I'm going to give first place to Tiara, second place to Colin, third place to Paige. Tiara, I think you made an excellent point that while this is not only an overused cliche, it's a harmful overused cliche, and that it creates unrealistic expectations for romantic situations and relationships, which is why, that's why first girl I dated was a serial killer,
Ah.
Not really, no, not really. No, she was not.
She stopped
never
after you.
Yeah, exactly. Stop because no, never dated a serial killer. And then, Colin, I'm giving you second place because I think you made an excellent point that yours is just, it's a product of, it's unnecessary and it's lazy writing and it's a major plot padding type thing, which is damaging to the movie industry. Paige, I think you made a wonderful point that yours is overused, but it still works, I think, is what was kind of hit against you. And it creates the necessary tension in romantic comedies. So that's why first place is Tiara, second place Colin, third place Paige. Thanks for tuning in. I've been told my arms have been going out of the camera frame, so I'm trying to be more cognizant of that, keeping them in. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Cardinal Film Fights, our Valentine's edition. If you like this video, like and subscribe to our page. I'm your host and judge and moderator, Mark Rollins. Have a wonderful evening.